Let's take a look at this table over here. This table is a catalog of car parts. As you can see, we are showing 25 rows per page, and this table is editable. So front-end users with permission can edit any data in this table. Guess what happens if a user wants to edit a row which is somewhere in the middle or in the lower part of the table? He needs to scroll down to this row. Let's edit this one. He needs to click this row to select this. He needs to scroll back up to the control block. He needs to click edit. He then needs to edit the data that he wants to change, let's say amount in stock. He needs to click OK, wait for this to save, then scroll back down, look where the row, where is this row now? Here it is, and make sure that the data has changed. Pretty annoying, isn't it? There's too many steps, like scrolling up, scrolling down, opening the dialog, etc. This is okay when the table has many columns and doesn't have that many rows per page, but for situations like this, that's not very friendly user experience. So what's the solution? See what we suggest. Let's go to the table configuration and see this checkbox over here, which is called Inline Editing. We just need to check it and press Save. Once we do that, we can reload the page. And now let's try to repeat the same operation. Edit some of the rows. Let's say we want to edit this row, break drum. We just need to double click the cell that we are editing. And let's say we now have 53 of them in stock. We just enter that and then we click the cell again. And that's it. We don't need to scroll up, scroll down, do all these operations. So let's try another one. For example, this one, this headlight. Let's say we just sold one and we are changing this from 8 to 7. That's it. Now, there is one more thing. What if we want to delete this row? Or maybe we don't want inline editing, but we don't want to scroll up and down. There is one more new feature that we introduced. Let's go back here and see there is one more new checkbox, which is called Popover Tools. This stands for displaying the control block, new, edit and delete in the place where you need it, not always on the upper part. So let me show you. I'm refreshing the page and you see we don't have new, edit and delete here anymore, but we can scroll to whatever row we need. Let's say fuel tank. We click it and we have this block here, so we can add a new one, delete this block or edit it in the dialog without any scrolling up and down. It is important to notice that inline editing works absolutely the same way as editing in the dialog, which means it doesn't only show you text input like in this situation, but if the editor input type is a select box, we'll also get a select box, or here. Another important thing to mention is that we've changed how front-end editing handles images. Now it's not just uploading and inserting the full-size image anymore, but if the column type is set as image and the editor input type is set as an attachment, you can browse for a new file, upload a large image, it can be several megabytes in size, upload that, click use selected file, and it will automatically insert a thumbnail which will have the size that is configured in your WordPress configuration. You can set the thumbnail size in your WordPress configuration in the settings media. For our demo site, the thumbnail size is defined as 150 per 150 pixels, and that's what you can see here. So this image is sized 150 per 150 pixels, and it's linked to full-size image. And there's one more thing, one more improvement. If you're using the same plugin that we do for lightboxes, which is called WordPress Lightbox 2, every image which you upload will be linked to full-size image in a lightbox overlay, and you will be also able to switch between them in a very user-friendly manner. This is the plugin that I'm talking about, WordPress Lightbox 2. This is a free plugin that you can download from WordPress.org plugins directory. It's regularly updated and it will work absolutely automatically. So you just need to install and activate it, and all of your images that you upload this way will be open in the Lightbox. I have one special task for you. Please take a look at this table for 10 seconds and let me know in which cells we have the values which are below $30,000. Not so easy, isn't it? We introduced a feature in the new version of wpDataTables which would allow you to do that not in 10 but in 3 or 5 seconds. Let me show you how it works. So this table here, as you maybe already noticed, is a dummy table which indicates company's revenue for a year, for each month. Now let's configure it in a way that we would quickly see that which company in which month made it below 30,000, which is maybe not so good, which did it between 30 and 60,000, that okay, and which had made it above 60,000, which is perfect. To make this possible, we need to open this table in the WordPress backend, open the table configuration, and scroll down to the columns configuration. Here they are. And in the bottom of each column configuration block, you can see a new section which is called Conditional Formatting, and a button which is called Define Rules. Let's click this button for the column January. We can add as many formatting rules as we need, so let's add the first one. And let's say if cell value is below 30,000, then we need to set cell color to red. As you can see, there can be multiple actions applied. So we can set the cell color, we can reset cell color if it was already set by some other rule. We can set some cell content to some particular value, and we can even override it with HTML. We can set the cell CSS class and then style it with some custom CSS. We can remove the CSS class. We can set the whole row color, reset row color, set row CSS class to some custom class, remove row CSS class, set column color. So if this particular cell, e.g., has a value below 0, then the whole column can be colored in red. And also a column can get a new CSS class. So if the cell value is below 30,000, we set the cell color to red. Another rule, if the cell value is equal or more than 30,000, then we set it to yellow, which means that it's okay. And if it is more or equal to 60,000, then we set the color to green. Let's refresh the table in the front end. And we can see now the whole cell is colored. We can even show all the rows, and the rules are applied. So everything below 30,000 is red, everything above 60,000 is green, everything between 30 and 60,000 is yellow. Now let's just apply the same rule to all the other columns. I've just defined the conditional formatting rules for all columns. I just skipped that so you wouldn't get bored. So let's take a look at this table now. You see it's very colorful now, and we can quickly see which company in which month did good, which did okay, and which did maybe not so well. And when we sort or filter or do whatever, all these rules are applied too. Now a couple of more things to mention. Let's see another example. For example, for January, let's say if the cell value is less than 30,000, then we set the cell content to something else. Let's say if the cell value is below 30,000, then we set the cell content to 0. Okay, save. By the way, maybe you noticed there is no pop-up anymore. We just get this popover here. Okay, and when we refresh, you can see that everything that was below 30,000 now turned 0. For the string columns, the formatting rules are a bit different. They can compare if something is equal, not equal, contains or doesn't contain a certain value. Let's say that for this company, if the cell value is equal to this company name, we will set the cell content to something else. Now let's refresh in the front end. This first company name is now replaced with something else. This replacement is done after the sorting is applied, so this company is still first, but the string is replaced. The handy thing here is that we can do that to replace actual values with some HTML. Let's see how this works. I've prepared the HTML block which contains the plugin logo. Now, if the cell value is equal to this, it will replace the cell content with this HTML block. Let's click OK and save. And now refresh. And you see it now placed the plugin logo instead of the company name. This might be very helpful again when you need to replace company names with logos, or maybe status like in stock, not in stock, with some images. Another new feature that I would like to show you here is called scrollable tables. This table is not very wide, but imagine if we had not one but two years data here. It would be way too wide to the right side. Now we also provided a solution for this. You can just tick one more checkbox, which is called scrollable, save this, and refresh it in the front end. And you get a scroll bar below the table, and no matter how wide it is, you can scroll to the right. This might be very helpful when you work with statistical data. One last important notice about the conditional formatting is that each next rule overrides the previous one, and if they coincide at some point, then again next rule overrides the previous. For example, in our case, both rules are applied, for example, to a number 70,000, but because this rule is the last, this will be overriding all the previous rules that were added. And one rule that always overrides all the others is called set column color. So, for example, if we say that if cell value is less than 20,000, we set whole column to black, then this will override all the other rules for all the other cells in the whole column as you can see here. So because there is one single cell that triggers this rule, the whole column is colored in black. Please keep this in mind when you will be working with conditional formatting. One more thing I almost forgot. Conditional formatting works only for visible columns. So if you want, for example, to add an invisible column, define a rule for its cells to color the other rows. For the moment, this unfortunately won't work. We will see if this will be a requested feature. We will also find a solution for this, but for the moment this isn't possible. Please take a look at this table over here. This table is a dummy catalog of apartments, flats, houses, and different property types. And we will use this to show you our new feature, which is called formula columns. See, we have two columns here called net cost and catalog cost. Say we would like to see what would the cost be if we would add also a 20% tax on top of that, and also we would like to calculate our revenue if we are selling someone this property for the catalog cost plus tax, and we need to see what's left for us. Till today, to do this in wpDataTables, you needed to do this all in the input source, basically do this in the Google Spreadsheet or in the Excel file. But now you can do this all within wpDataTables. Let's see how. We open this table in the backend, open the configuration, and you can see at this section where we have the column setup, we have a new button called Add Formula. When we click it, we have another column added. The formula column block has a little bit different header, which is used to quickly identify that this column here is not pulled from the data source but is calculated on the fly. Also, you see this new input here, which is called formula for calculation, and also the button formula constructor. This will help us to build the formula. Let's click it. You can see on the left side the columns which we can use in the formula. For the moment, we can use only numeric columns, which are float and integer columns in the formula. Also, you can see the list of supported operators, and these are mathematical operators and also a little bit of trigonometry. Also, you can see here a brief explanation how to use this and an example of formula. Formula can be pretty much complex. You can use brackets, you can use multiple nested formulas, etc. So for the first column, we would like to see what would be the price be when we take the catalog cost and add on top of that 20% tax. So we simply multiply this column here by 1.2. And we also have this button here. When we click it, we can preview the result for first 5 rows. Here we go. We can see that it's working, so we can save and then refresh the page in the front end. As you can see, the formula calculated the catalog cost with the added tax correctly. Just that here we have the applied rule for float columns, and here we still have integers, but we can fix this now. Also here we don't have the dollar sign. This can quickly be fixed. We just add a dollar sign here and we set these as floats. Here you go. So now we have the Formula 1 displaying catalog cost with text. Let's just rename it with plus VAT tax. Here it is. And now let's calculate our revenue. We create another formula column, open the formula constructor, and now we need to multiply catalog cost 1.0 minus this column. This would be our revenue. We can see the result for first rows. Here it is. And just add $sign because it also stands for currency. When it's saved, we refresh it in the front end. And here it is, our revenue. So this minus net costs with the tax, this is our revenue. Of course, this is not exact, and probably the formula in real life would have something else. We can also add, I don't know, minus 100 of this and 200 of that. Click Save and refresh, and this is still working. I need to mention a couple of important limitations of the formula columns. First one is that only the values of the same row can be used in the formula. For the moment, it doesn't work like in the spreadsheet software when you can say take this cell minus this cell plus this cell, and if this one isn't empty, we will probably add all that. But for the moment, you can only say do the calculations from the cells of the same row, which is already a big step. Another limitation is that we can't use the formula columns for filtering if the table is using server-side processing, because basically this column doesn't exist in the backend and the server won't be able to search within this column. And the third limitation, which is not such a big problem, is that one formula column cannot be used in another formula column for the moment. Basically, here we needed to repeat this. We can't just take the formula one. We had to repeat the calculation once again. This is not, I guess, a big limitation and shouldn't be annoying. See this table over here. This is a dummy table of beer sales. We have 4 types of beer, dates in the first column, and the amount of sales. So let's see how the new feature called sum rows or total rows works. Let's open this table in the backend, in the WordPress admin panel. Here it is. And take a look over here. For each numeric columns, which are integer or float, we have this new checkbox, which is called show a total for this column in footer. Let's tick this for all 4 types of beer and save. Now we just need to refresh the table. And here you go. You can see the amount of sales of each type of beer, but this is the amount for the complete table. So we have 100 of rows, and for these 100 of rows, this is the amount for each column. So now very easy, if you need to see only for, say, September of 2015, we just filter the table from 1st to 30th of September, and this gets recalculated. If you want to say only for first week, here we go, only first week. Only 1 day, here we go, only for 1 day. This works the same for server-side based tables and for float columns. So whenever you filter, it gets recalculated. I believe many of you will find this feature very nice because this was very requested. If you don't mind another example with alcohol, take a look at this catalog of wine here. This table has several columns: country, region, grape size, sweetness, color, and food match. I'm going to use this catalog of wine to show you how we removed one very annoying limitation. If you worked with the plugin for some time now, you know that it had a limitation that if the table is using server-side processing and if you want to use a drop-down for a certain column for filtering or editing, you needed to enter the possible values for this column manually. And this is okay if there are only 3 or 4 values, but if there is 200 of them, it's what was extremely annoying. And many people wrote me and said, like, are you kidding me? Could you do something with that? And yeah, we can, and we did. Here in this table, you can see that all of the values in all columns repeat after a certain period. So there are only several sizes, only several types of grape, not so many countries, not so many possible food matches for wine. But at the same time, there is not so little of them. And entering all of that manually would take maybe half an hour. Now, if you look here in the column configuration block, you will see these 2 new buttons here. And without explaining what they do, I will just click that. It calls the server and it enters all the possible values that it met here. And it's ordered in the alphabetical order. So I will click this button for all the columns. And now I'm going to make all the filter types for these columns select box. Actually, we can also use checkboxes. So here, select box, here we can use checkbox. Now we just need to save and reopen the table in the front end. And this is very easy. Now we have this catalog. We can get all the wines from a certain country or certain region or with certain grape types. By the way, you see we fixed the problem that we had with many checkboxes. Now they're nicely aligned in 3 columns. So we can choose a certain size, certain sweetness, and filter our catalog very quickly. And we don't need to spend too much time typing all the possible values for all of the countries and all of the regions, etc. Imagine how many time would it take to type all of that manually. And yes, this is very important that you can still type manually. So, for example, if some of the sizes do not exist in the table, but you need them for the front-end editing because they are possible, you can still add them manually. You're separating them with a stick as it was before. We know that many users use our plugin to display and monitor some key business indicators, or not necessarily business, but to be able to watch some parameters that may change over time. And it would be very helpful for them to be able to watch them change in real time, because it's not always updating on a daily basis. It might also update hourly or even within several seconds. We introduced a new feature which would allow you to quickly monitor in real time all the changes that are happening with your data set right now at this moment. I just need to mention that for now it's working only for the tables which are based on MySQL and which use server-side processing. However, we plan to also enable server-side processing for non-MySQL data sources such as JSON, XML, serialized PHP arrays. Please take a look at this table. This is a dummy stock market. The data here isn't real. It's just used to illustrate the feature. And you might see, if I refresh the page, that the charts and the table gets updated each 5 seconds. So the MySQL table behind gets updated automatically each 5 seconds to show you how the real-time changes work. And it's very annoying to need to update this manually, and it takes time to load and refresh. So we introduced a new feature now which would allow you to refresh automatically at a defined time period, and you can define this time yourself. Let's see how we can enable that. We need to go to the WordPress admin and open the administration for open the configuration for this table. You can see that this is a MySQL query-based table. It selects last 10 entries for the stock market. It has server-side processing enabled, and when this is enabled, there is a new feature called Auto-Refresh, where you can enter the interval in seconds for the automatical refresh of table. And if this table has charts connected with follow table filtering feature enabled, this will automatically refresh the charts as well. And if this is empty, then the table will not auto-refresh. Let's enter 5 seconds, save, and refresh our page to see what changes. So yeah, it takes time to initially load the table and the charts. And now you see, table gets updated each 5 seconds, and so the charts. And you can monitor the market or whatever criteria you need at real time. The numbers here get inserted randomly, but you can see how it changes each 5 seconds. Should be very useful for these ones of you who work with financial data or statistical data or scientific data, etc. One more major improvement in the new version is related to the Table Tools block. As you probably know, the Table Tools block is the block of buttons which is displayed above every table in the top right corner. Till recently it was working based on Adobe Flash library. And this caused us a lot of problems because not all browsers, not all operating systems, not all devices support Flash natively and smoothly. And for many of you it was producing strange output, strange look and strange behavior. Now the new version of the library that we use looks the same, but it's based on HTML5 and works much more smoothly. Also, one more thing is that now it's not only enabled or disabled by default for the whole block, but you can configure for each table which particular buttons do you want to see in the Table Tools block. And there is one new feature in the Table Tools, which is called Column Visibility button. Let's enable all of them, save and refresh. and you will see all the buttons look like they used to look, just that there is one more button called columns, and this works this way. When you click it, you get a drop down of all the columns that exist in a table, including the ID column, which is invisible. And this allows your front-end users to define which columns they want to see. For example, I don't want to see this, and this column. And now I get only 2, but I want to enable the ID to know the ID of the row. Not all tables need that, but for example, if you don't want your users to be able to configure the column visibility, you just disable this and it will go away. So this way you can always configure how this table tools block will look, and you don't need to do any custom coding as you had to do before. Print hides everything on the page except for the table. Excel exports the Excel file, which is not anymore just a CSV file with Excel extension. It's proper Excel file. CSV export and CSV, comma separated values file. Copy copies the values to clipboard, and PDF generates a PDF. Please note that same as with previous version of Table Tools library, only the visible rows for tables which use server-side processing will be included in the export file. If you want to print or export to PDF the whole table, choose Show All Entries, and then you can generate PDF again. And the PDF will contain the complete table. By default, the file name and the title, which is displayed over here for PDFs, is wpDT_export. To override this, you would need to edit the shortcode, and there is a new attribute which is called export_file_name. Export file name. And let's call this catalog of wine. We update and then we refresh the page. And when we export to PDF once again, the file name is catalog of wine, and the same is written here. Let's export the complete catalog. Many users were asking us for a possibility to pre-filter the table via URL, so that it would be possible to open the same page with a different key in the URL, and this key would pre-filter the table. So let's see how this works. We have already seen this table over here, and let's say we would like to pre-filter it with something. So we would just need to take the full URL, add the question mark, and then type wdt, which stands for wpDataTables _search equals, and then after the equal sign we enter the value that we want to use for the global search filter over here. Let's enter VE, click enter, and you see that VE entered in the search block here. So only the rows which do contain VE in one of the cells are shown. So vegetarian, here it's here, and this row it's over here, and this row it's here, etc. So if we enter something more than that, now it filtered only the vegetarian. And another feature that existed in the plugin for a while now, but I know that many of the users are not aware of that, so I want to mention this just once again. It is possible to filter individual columns via URL. We just need to do the same thing, but use a different URL key. We put a question mark here, wdt, which stands for wpDataTables, underscore column filter. I already tried different filters here, that's why my Chrome suggested that. So we see we have the URL, question mark, wdt underscore column underscore filter. Then we have the square brackets. Inside of these square brackets, we need to enter the column original header, which is the header that we can see in the configuration. So not the displayed header, but the original header, which sometimes can differ if you redefine the header. And let's say we want to filter the food match, then we need to use food underscore match in lowercase. And let's say we want to pre-filter vegetarian. And you see the table was pre-filtered. It's shown only the rows which have food match as vegetarian. And it's clicked here. And it's also possible to enter multiple values for the checkboxes. It can be vegetarian, cheese, and pork, for example. We are separating multiple values with a stick. Now it shows vegetarian, pork, and cheese. We can add more columns here. We need to add an and sign, then add again wdt underscore column underscore filter, square brackets, let's say size. Just make sure size lowercase. And size will be 1 liter. We are pre-filtering everything which matches vegetarian, cheese, and pork food, and where the size is 1 liter. If you don't want to look for the original header, you can also use the numeric index of the column, but it's important to notice that the columns are zero based and that invisible columns are also counting. So here we have the ID column, which is invisible, and this stands for 0, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if we want to filter, for example, the grape, we can add one more entry here. We add the and sign, the ampersand, wdt column filter, then in square brackets we put 0 for invisible column, 1, 2, 3. We put 3 here because this is the index of the column, and we choose, for example, this grape. And again, we can add multiple. We just separate them with the stick. And you see our values are here, everything pre-filtered. You can use this feature to build your own custom search forms, which would be visible to the user, and he would fill them in and then browse to the page with the table and use his input to pre-filter the table with the values that this particular user needs. Our primary mission and primary goal is to develop software that stays modern and that helps you solve your real day-to-day tasks. We really don't want to develop something that only looks nice on the preview and only makes the clients to buy this product for once. We are trying to build an audience which will stay with us. And it's very important that the software would be applicable for real tasks, for real projects. We know that happens many times with different software, that it looks very nice on the preview, but when you purchase that and when you try to use that in your real use scenario, it's just not applicable. either not working correctly or working but not the way that it would make sense for you, etc. And that's why we always monitor your feedback. We are listening to your comments. We are reading your comments on Code Canyon. We are reading your questions that you send us via mail or on our site. We are reading your questions and comments in the support system. Honestly, many of the nicest features and the most interesting features that wpDataTables has now were suggested by the real users because they need it in their real life. We were thinking about how to make the process of giving us feedback easier for our users and also easier for us to understand our audience and their key needs. So we decided to introduce a customer feedback survey. This will be a single place where you can give us feedback. It wouldn't take more than 3 minutes of your time, and you would really help us if you could fill this in if you are already using wpDataTables. It has several basic questions and several questions related to functionality of the plugin. There is one special question here, which is a vote for feature question. There is several suggestions for possible functionalities, and you can order them by how helpful would they be for you. So this way we could see what is the most interesting for our users and what is maybe not so interesting. Also, if you don't see a feature that would be interesting for you here in this list, you can always let us know in these text fields here. We are analyzing the results every day, and this survey here will really influence the process of further development of the plugin. One more special surprise that I promised in the beginning. As we are really grateful to the WordPress community that helped us to start our small business, small software business, we wanted to give something in return. So we introduced a light version of our plugin, and it is available now for free on the wordpress.org. You can download it. Of course, there are certain limitations. Not all of the features of the full version of the plugin are available. Of course, we need to sell something to keep our business running, but it's a pretty decent version. And if you have a separate site that doesn't maybe need so many rows, doesn't need maybe charts or some other features that are cut from the light version, you can really make use of this plugin. And you would really help us if you would install that and enable our credits. So if there would be a big backlink on your site and more people would find out about our plugin. If we have more people that use our plugin, we will invest more in the development and we will have more features. And as you know, when you buy once, you get all the updates for free. When we grow, you grow.